Darth, Theorist, rise. What if Qui-Gon Jinn became Grand Master? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Qui-Gon marches out of the Jedi Council Chambers, still reeling after their callous dismissal of what he had said. He wasn't sure why he was surprised. His master had long said similar things about them, and the issues they had caused him. He supposed he was a fool for believing in them. Still, he means what he says when he will leave the Jedi Order. Whatever they might believe, Anakin still deserves training, and he will give it to him, chosen one or not. That is, until he hears footsteps behind him and finds Master Plo approaching, with Yoda hobbling behind. He gestures for them to follow into a quieter corner.
Master Qui-Gon, a moment, please.
Master Plo, is something wrong?
On the contrary, your words have gotten some of the Council's attention. Your oratory is impressive, as was your discovery. I have personally reviewed the data, and while I cannot be certain this boy is the chosen one, I can be certain he displays remarkable potential. It would be foolish to dismiss that because of his age.
I thank you for your consideration, Master. But if I may be so forward as to ask what this might mean.
Help you, we will, young one. Accept this boy, we will. But in need of you, the Council is.
You know I am always ready to serve the Jedi Order.
Even as a member of Council.
A member of the Jedi Council? Me? Do you truly think I am worthy? It is a great responsibility. Will the others accept it?
I can think of no one else more worthy than you, Master. While there are those who are more experienced in skill, you bring new ideas, flexibility that the Jedi Order has been sorely lacking. And with the Sith returning, we may need that talent more than ever.
Does that mean one of you intends to retire?
Indeed. Stepping down as Grand Master, I will. Take my place, you shall.
Qui-Gon can only stare at the pair in surprise, unable to truly make sense of everything that was happening. However, both masters assure him that they are quite sincere and confident that they can get the support of the rest of the Jedi Council, albeit begrudgingly. Finally, the Jedi Master bows to his elders and thanks them for this opportunity. When they meet up later that day, they make the announcement, and the rest of the Jedi Council welcomes their new Grand Master. Their first course of action is to find out how to deal with the Naboo crisis. Thankfully, the Senate gets its act together with the election of Chancellor Palpatine, as they now have their support in the coming conflict. With their backing, Qui-Gon begins organizing a task force to help Queen Amidala retake her planet. He initially plans to take only Obi-Wan with him, but his former master pulls him aside and disagrees. Dooku was the new Grand Master's biggest supporter, but when he speaks to him, his voice is grave and worried. He advises him that the two of them were adequate when they were simply acting as diplomats. Now that he has a full support of the Jedi Order, he must show it, especially when the Sith are involved. Qui-Gon is still getting used to being the new Grand Master, but he recognizes the necessity of this and has Master Plo accompany him alongside several other experienced Jedi. This presence helps give Padme more legitimacy. They soon arrive in Theed, and the Jedi split into separate teams, with some joining the Resistance and attacking the droid forces scattered across the city, but Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan lead a second team to help Padme capture the palace and Nute Gunray. The Viceroy of the Trade Federation watches these developments with growing fear as his security droids are effortlessly cut down by the Jedi. 2 of them were bad enough, but a dozen of them are now rampaging across the city. In his quarters, Maul sits in meditation, preparing himself for battle. He takes a few deep breaths and grips his lightsaber when his communicator begins to beep. To his surprise, it is his master calling.
Your foes draw close, my apprentice.
Indeed. I am preparing to meet them as we speak, Master.
No, this is no isolated pair of Jedi, but a trained strike team. You no longer have the surprise on your side. Leave now. This battle is lost.
Master, surely we can do something. I can isolate them, and...
No. Our plan is too valuable to risk on a few dead Jedi. They have already acted far differently than I predicted. We must take this opportunity to reassess. Leave now, and take care to avoid being captured. They will not save you if you are taken into their custody.
Maul curses this, but sees no reason to oppose his master. Gripping his lightsaber, the Sith prepares to leave. Although Nute Gunray summons him to his side in order to protect him, Maul ignores this and makes his way towards the hangar, where he can evacuate. He is careful to mask his presence in the Force, keeping himself hidden from everyone, except one. Qui-Gon is the only one not fooled by this shroud. He had seen it once, and the living force guides him towards the hangar. While most of the Jedi head to the throne room to confront Nute Gunray, the Grand Master pulls Plo Koon and Obi-Wan aside to confront him. He finds the Sith in a hallway approaching the hangar. The warrior is surprised to see them, but he is not unprepared. Igniting his lightsaber, he grins and prepares himself. Before the rest of them can react, he rushes towards them. Plo is the first person to rouse himself and unleashes a barrage of Force judgment. Maul twirls his lightsaber around, feeling the energy blast around him and dissipate before closing in and whirling his weapon around. The three back away and are forced to give ground as the blade flashes. Qui-Gon moves from the right and raises his weapon up. Maul catches the blow, intercepting the strike and pushing it aside, just as Obi-Wan comes from the side. With his rear blade, Maul catches the strike and pivots to face him and Master Plo. His lightsaber whirls around as he tries to overwhelm them with speed. Though Obi-Wan struggles against this, the older Jedi makes up for it as he parries each attack and counters by turning Maul's attack and letting it slide into the wall beside him. He thrusts a hand forward, throwing the Sith back and feeling his lightsaber fly from his grip.
Surrender.
I think not.
Obi-Wan and Plo both push their hands forward to knock him against the wall. However, Maul is prepared for it and leaps over the attack. He rushes towards the exit before they can redirect their attacks. Qui-Gon rushes towards him and tries to swing his lightsaber. As he runs, Maul reaches for his lightsaber, still embedded in the wall, and feels it in his hands. He turns the last second and blocks the attacks, holding the Grand Master's attack at bay. He follows with a kick, sending him back and leaving Qui-Gon slamming against the wall before disappearing down the hall. By the time the three Jedi reach the hangar, they see Maul's ship flying off and disappearing into the sky. Qui-Gon curses and watches the ship. However, the rest of the team reports that they managed to arrest Nute Gunray, and, even more remarkably, they reported that Anakin, of all people, managed to disable the droid control ship, shutting down the entire droid army. With that, the Naboo crisis draws to an end, and helps burnish the Jedi Order, as well as Qui-Gon as the new Grand Master. The Viceroy is set to face trial on Coruscant, and the Trade Federation ceases its blockade over Naboo, giving the planet its independence again. To the rest of the Republic, it seems as though the crisis is finally over. However, Qui-Gon believes the problems are just beginning. In the aftermath of the battle, Yoda is now fully convinced that there is something unique about Anakin and decides to train the boy. Meanwhile, Qui-Gon continues to pour resources into hunting Maul. His presence makes it clear that the Sith are back. To help him are Dooku and Plo, along with the rest of the Jedi Council. Seeing his student manage to secure a position for himself as Grand Master, Dooku begins to cut contact with Palpatine, as he has second thoughts about working with the Sith, and instead works to undo the seeds sown by the new Chancellor. Qui-Gon starts by establishing new outposts across the Outer Rim, and has training facilities for young Jedi and Padawan in Force-rich planets, so that they are not spending all their time on Coruscant. The young Grand Master recalls his fascination with the trees in the Jedi Temple Garden. In a world of metal and industry, this one piece of nature helps him feel connected to the Force. He wishes for the next generation to understand that feeling, and has them train in places like Dantooine, Dagobah, and Kashyyyk, where they can be one with nature. All of this leaves Palpatine fuming as he realizes his carefully laid plans are in jeopardy because of Qui-Gon, who is already working on repairing the Jedi's reputation. If he is to go through with his plan, he must first discredit Qui-Gon and ensure that someone more reactionary takes the wheel. However, Qui-Gon soon learns about this as Dooku pulls him aside one day and warns him about it.
My student, there is something you must know about our Chancellor. He is not the man you think he is. You have been searching for the Master of Maul's apprentice, and he is far closer than you realize.
You cannot mean to say that Chancellor Palpatine is the Sith we've been after. He has done everything he can to help us.
Wrong. He has done everything he can to help himself. All of those moves were to secure the loyalty of the Senate and to get himself elected Chancellor. However, that is not where things end.
Even if what you say is true, how do you know about this?
I know because he had attempted to recruit me to help him accomplish his goals. He knew that I was growing disillusioned with the Jedi Order and offered me a chance to make things different. However, after seeing your success, I couldn't go through with it. That is why I am warning you now.
Master.
I'm not proud of what I did, and I make no excuses for it. However, we are in a dangerous situation, and my knowledge might be able to help.
Why not simply confront him now? Surely you must have evidence.
Unfortunately, Palpatine was quite careful to avoid anything that might implicate him. All I have is my word, and that will not be enough once I confess to working with the Sith. And even if I did, it would still not go well. Doubtlessly, the Chancellor will have taken precautions to distance himself from the recent Naboo crisis.
This proves to be true, as during the ensuing investigation between Newt Gunray and his links to the Naboo crisis, there is nothing that ties him to the Sith beyond his involvement with Maul. All signs point to them simply working as allies on their own volition. The Viceroy even confesses that he hired him as a mercenary, promising him credits in exchange for acting as his enforcer and bodyguard to help secure the Trade Federation's control of the planet. When he does confess who recommended him hiring Maul, he points to the banker Hego Damask, who happens to be dead after a heart attack in his home. This leaves them with no lead, especially since Maul was not even captured. Qui-Gon slowly begins to realize just how dangerous Palpatine is and orders all their resources to search for him. However, this is more controversial even within the Jedi Order. While they recognize the threats, many are concerned that Qui-Gon might be growing obsessed with finding Maul, as he has them follow through with every lead, no matter how remote. Some even whisper that this stems from anger due to his being unable to capture him, being the one part of the mission that did not go according to plan. While Master Plo defends him, it is a difficult situation. Dooku is charged with hunting Maul down, and the Sith warrior makes multiple appearances across the Outer Rim. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. Maul continues to evade them. Even Dooku, who has collaborated with the Sith in the past, doesn't recognize what is going on. However, after a failed attempt to track him down on the edge of known space, Maul materializes yet again, and this time not too far from where he last appeared. This immediately causes Dooku to frown. Normally, after a failed capture, Maul would spend weeks lying low, only to appear entire sectors away, but to appear so close, it gets Dooku's attention. The only problem is just where he appears, along the edges of unknown space, on a planet named Tulpa. He decides to take his team and sets course to the planet, informing only Qui-Gon of this operation. The planet is desolate and inhospitable, with geyser fields and swamps dominating the landscape. There is barely a place for their ship to land amidst the mangroves, but as Plo, Dooku, and Obi-Wan press deeper, they can see that there is more hidden in the foliage than they realize. They manage to find a massive city amidst the trees and plants that look like a mixture between a temple and a market. They sneak in through a nearby swamp, making their way inside the city. To their shock, the place is inhabited by Rakatans. These strange creatures were long thought extinct, but they seem to be thriving as they walk through the streets, tended to by countless slaves. But from the corner, they see Maul's ship, half hidden. Dooku closes his eyes and uses the Force to guide him towards the missing Sith warrior. This leads them into the massive ziggurat, where the presence grows stronger and stronger. In the center of this great structure, there is a small chamber illuminated by a few torches, where Maul stands with a Rakatan chief.
You risk much coming here, strange creature. Our people do not take kindly to outsiders. Give me one good reason why I should not kill you. Because that would be the waste of resources, Great One. After seeing the great heights from which your infinite empire has fallen, I would think you would be less keen on wasting resources. You speak well, Offworlder, but I hope your actions and tribute will be just as compelling. I bring something that your people have long craved. A connection to the Force.
Smiles and takes a deep breath. Suddenly, the torches around them begin to flicker a bit brighter. They dance wildly around, causing the chief to second-guess themselves before Maul exhales, and the fire explodes outward, brushing up against the ceiling and blackening the stone. When they at last die down, the Rakatan is convinced and offers his aid. But soon after, Maul smiles.
Well then, you can start by bringing those prisoners before me.
He raises a hand toward Dooku and his companion's direction. The Rakatan chief blinks in surprise, but then shrieks for his guards and rushes forward. They fire blasters and swing vibro-axes. The first guard dies as Dooku slashes his blade apart and then shoves the man back. Plo follows closely behind, cutting through the guards, and Obi-Wan follows, leaping over them, pushing them down the stairs. This clears a path for them, but Maul is close behind, his lightsaber whirling as 20 Rakatans follow. They chase them to the ziggurat, but gongs begin to sound, urging the entire city to rise up against them. Everywhere they turn, Rakatan warriors and slave soldiers are unleashed upon them. The three stand back to back, fighting through the crowd. However, the guards are inexperienced fighting those who use the Force. Each time they throw lightning or use the Force to knock enemies aside, the guards pause to look in shock. Eventually, they manage to reach the ship and take off, just as Maul stands by the city walls with the chieftain. He does not bother to pursue them, but instead begins listing off his demands. He wants texts on the Rakatan civilizations, especially their fall. He knows that it was the plague that destroyed their empire, a plague that had and continues to cut them off from the Force. Maul wants specimens of that plague that have been kept in stasis.
You mock our suffering, off-worlder. I admire it. The power that could destroy an empire of Force users in a single generation. Such knowledge could reshape the galaxy. And when that is done, it will leave the opportunity for empires to rise again. The plague is no power to be wielded. It is a wound upon the stars. But perhaps you may yet learn how deep it runs. But first, you will bring us what your emperor promised. Ships, weapons, and alliances. You will have them.
As the small group manages to make their escape and flees to the nearest system, they think themselves safe. However, soon after, Rakatan skip ships begin to appear and rain down blaster fire upon them. Hundreds of them begin to appear, deploying thousands of Rakatan warriors who advance across the planet. The sight of these new invaders caused panic to spread across the Senate, which had just celebrated the end of one crisis. But while they are furiously trying to work towards a solution, many in the Jedi Council are just as furious at Qui-Gon. They question how he could organize a dangerous mission without telling them. Now the consequences of this are clear to see as the Rakatans fight against a desperate planetary defense force. As the news spreads to the Republic, the Senate is furious, especially once the news comes out that the Jedi were exploring that sector. To them, the Rakatans were provoked by unauthorized Jedi incursions. Holograms of senators flicker above their pods, their voices overlapping in a storm of accusation. The chaos echoes through the vast chamber. In the Chancellor's pod, Palpatine rises slowly, hands folded neatly before him.
My friends, this is not time for blame. Grand Master Jedi Jin acted with the intent to preserve peace, not incite conflict. We must not forget that the Jedi have long served the Republic faithfully. Even the most well-meaning Jedi can endanger us, especially when they act without the Senate's guidance.
Normally, such words are enough to incite the Jedi Council to his defense, but this time they are just as incensed as Palpatine.
You left without full council approval, Master Jin. You endangered your team and violated protocol. That is not leadership. It is recklessness.
If the Rakatans are truly back, your actions may have risked countless worlds. This is a huge problem, and not something that the Council can overlook. We must at least consider a temporary suspension of duties.
You speak of hindsight, Masters. I acted on the will of the Force as I felt it. I could not have known the Rakatans would. That's just it. You felt. You didn't see.
Enough. Choose Qui-Gon I did for his willingness to follow the Force. Not straight that path is, but blame him I will not. If blame there is, share some of it I do.
The Council murmurs in quiet disagreement, but none challenge him. The tensions seem to ease with those reassuring words, but in the end, it is only a stay of execution, as there is still this matter to deal with. The session ends with no resolution. Qui-Gon bows stiffly and leaves, his footsteps echoing through the marble halls. As he departs, Yoda reaches out to him and offers a sad smile.
Heavy this burden is I placed on you. No hard feelings, are there?
Of course not, Master. I am honored by your trust. But to tell you the truth, this has been more difficult than I ever expected.
Balanced you must be if you are to serve the Jedi Council. Lacking that balance, many of the Council members are. In times of conflict, important it is to find that to deal with these crises.
Balance. That word echoes through Qui-Gon's mind like a lost art. He wonders how he could possibly find that, even as his thoughts swirl with the chaos and uncertainty around him. Even as he considers that, they are threatened to overtake him and leave him questioning what he can do. But just as those thoughts run wild, he forces himself to calm down. This is exactly what he wishes to avoid. Instead, he reminds himself to search for balance and finds the best place for it. He feels the pull of the Force guiding him away from the temple halls and brings him to the meditation gardens. Lanterns drift above the still ponds, reflecting the twin moons of Coruscant. Qui-Gon kneels among the trees and closes his eyes before reaching for the living Force. At first, it greets him like an old friend, warm, flowing, infinite, but then he feels it falter. The current is weak, muffled, as though a great veil has fallen between him and the light. He opens his eyes, unsettled. The air feels heavier than before. Something beyond the temple's reach, something vast and ancient stirs, feeding on silence.
The Force is weeping. Something is happening.
Meanwhile, across the stars, Maul plots. With the samples in his hands, he begins working to synthesize and modify the virus. To help him, the Trade Federation provides one of their old contacts, Dr. Vindy, who studies the virus and works to modify it, just as it had severed the Rakatans' connection to the Force. Such a power could be devastating to the Jedi if it could be amplified to affect all species. For a time, Maul disappears off the face of the galaxy entirely, retreating to the secret lab built on Naboo during their brief occupation as Dr. Vindy works on the disease and, at long last, manages to do it and provides him a device that can release this plague. The hangar doors of the Jedi Temple hiss open as the wreckage of a captured Rakatan ship settles onto the platform. Its hull is scarred black by plasma fire, its alien markings half-scorched and unreadable. Jedi technicians swarm the site, guided by curious masters and archivists eager to study what they believe is a relic of history reborn. The sudden victory over the Rakatan incursion came as a success, but the string of reports Dooku provided shows it. The planetary forces were able to gain an upper hand and drive back the invaders. Not only that, but they have left behind several ships which can be studied to gauge their capabilities should they ever return. But while this is a victory, Chancellor Palpatine uses it as an excuse to ramp pressure up on them. He makes sure the Senate does not forget who is responsible for this attack, and through his allies, he pressures the Jedi for accountability.
If the Jedi wish to act as soldiers and fight wars, they must answer to the Senate as soldiers. This Rakatan catastrophe proves they are out of control.
The Jedi serve with noble hearts, but even the noblest can err when left without guidance. Let us not condemn, but advise.
He proposes bills that will limit the Jedi's independence and force them to accept further oversight. Meanwhile, Mace, Depa, and Ki-Adi-Mundi try to resist this as much as they can, reminding the Senate that the Jedi function best when it is an independent force. However, they are willing to sacrifice Qui-Gon and order his resignation if it means dropping the issue. Yoda and Plo Koon defend him, but the air is heavy with doubt, pointing out that Qui-Gon listens to the Force, but is a feeble defense. But this is a feeble defense, and they begin to think that this is only a matter of time before he truly is removed. Qui-Gon sits quietly, his hands clasped in the gardens to clear his head. He takes a deep breath and begins to close his eyes, the weight of every voice pressing hard against him. For a moment, he closes his eyes and feels it. The same faint veil as before. The Force is dimming again.
Something is wrong.
Deep within the ship, Maul's silhouette moves in silence, his cloak blending into the shadows as he sneaks out once the technicians leave. For days they have studied the weapons and technology left to them, many artifacts being carried into the archives or other critical places. Now it is time to activate the dormant plague. He approaches the archives and finds one of them, closing his eyes and feeling the dormant disease waiting to spread.
Soon the temple will breathe silence. No voices, no visions. Only the Sith.
The hum of the Rakatan ship is barely audible, yet every sound seems magnified in the dark. Qui-Gon strides through the corridor with Yoda and Plo beside him. His instincts guide him toward the archives, drawn by an invisible pull in the Force.
You sense it too?
Like a heartbeat buried beneath stone.
They reach the room and stop. The air feels wrong, too cold, too still. From the shadows, a voice speaks.
You always arrive too late, Jin.
The Sith steps from behind the wreckage, eyes burning like coals. He ignites his double-bladed saber. The artifact hums behind him, faint, sickly green.
You brought this to a temple. A weapon, a gift from the infinite empire. When it spreads, the Jedi will no longer hear the Force. The galaxy will belong to us.
He lunges. Blades clash as Qui-Gon meets him. Yoda leaps from a bookshelf and lunges at Maul. Their lightsabers flash and thunder across the room when he lunges above and lands behind him. Growling, Maul whirls and moves to face them, his weapon darting back and forth to intercept these strikes. Plo rushes from the center and forces him back. He gives an upward slash that knocks Maul's defenses aside, while Qui-Gon rushes at his exposed side. Maul tries to step back, but Yoda comes from another side and knocks him down. Just as he's about to be overwhelmed, he reaches for the tomes above them and uses the Force to send them falling upon them. Yoda must stop to catch them, but the Sith leaps above them and rushes for the artifact, his powers already reaching up to commune with it and unleash its plague. But then he feels a surge of pain as Plo throws a burst of Force judgment, and Qui-Gon moves from the side and forces him to defend. Maul stumbles, just a few inches away from the artifact, but before he can reach it, he tries to push Qui-Gon aside and feels another flurry of attacks falling upon him. He whirls his lightsaber around to keep them back, but it's a losing battle, and he gives ground, inching closer and closer towards the device. Yet, at the last minute, a hand reaches out and takes it from him. Dooku appears and holds the device in his hand. Beside him, Obi-Wan stands ready with his lightsaber. Seeing this battle turning against him, Maul glares up, breathing hard. Then he lowers his weapon and surrenders. With Maul under their control, he confesses everything about what Palpatine had done under the promise of being exiled somewhere far away. He tells them how Palpatine had ordered him to work with the Rakatans and negotiate on their behalf. The communications he keeps between them are proof, along with his involvement in the Naboo crisis. This time there is no hiding, and Palpatine finds himself in Qui-Gon's place, facing the full brunt of the Jedi Order and the Senate. Although he tries to defend himself, the writing is on the wall, and he soon is forced to resign and is arrested. After he is taken care of, Qui-Gon is allowed to remain head of the Jedi Order, and focuses his efforts on beating back any future Rakatan invasions. However, he does not only focus on military force, as Qui-Gon also works to reform the Jedi Order and restore the public's faith in them. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.